Okay, it looks like my machine here ran into some trouble. I hope that hopefully has nothing to do with the machine itself and just with my changes in the settings about like a keyframe interval. So I reset that. For some reason it just went toast with starting to lag, and also with frequent messages on the terminal window. So I hope that's like, it doesn't look like the CPU load was the issue actually, but you never know what happened there. Hopefully it's not the hardware problem that caused some of the trouble with the other operating system on this machine. Too bad, too bad. Yeah, I mean, it's always like, it cannot just work, can it? Oh wait, I already have that one open. And did the recovery, I guess, didn't I? Yes, I did do the recovery. Where was I? Hopefully it'll be fine for this session. I remember I was looking at the job file, I guess, because all of my components have a job file like this one. Okay. It's output file now. And I really have to be a little bit careful here for all of the code that does the checking. Output file element, path attribute. Oh my. Okay. In this case, I think for output files, I don't need to check, or okay, I need to check for the file if it exists, in order to make sure that it isn't a directory or link. So the code should be pretty much the same for a directory or a file. And I also don't need to create it. Output file. Okay. What did I miss? What's happening here? What's this? Okay. And down here I have more of these. Okay. Let's see if it still compiles. Okay, it does. Okay, and it complains that the input file doesn't exist. Okay, that's sort of allowed. What I'll do now is get an input file. A proper one. So the example would be this file here, these change instructions. So as you see, there are a lot of these. And I guess it depends a little bit for the optimization. That's something like probably the key feature of the optimizer to allow the user to decide where the boundaries of the versions are, to decide what changes need to be combined into single changes, and where to stop, basically, because the let's say new version has been constructed. That's a little bit abstract, I guess. I mean, I could like explain all of that properly, but that would take much more time. So that's basically the file with the change instructions. And if like, yeah, maybe I should just explain it. Let's say I, like, as the user of the optimizer, I say this is the final version, right? From 0 bytes, 0 characters to this version. That means that all of the earlier changes from scratch, even if there are some delete instructions in here, of course, right? They could be combined in one single addition, so it looks like it was perfectly written from scratch in the first attempt. So if I say I want and this is the version that gets published to the server or like saved or whatever, right? Or like I collapse all of the earlier changes into this one change instruction of a single addition. So now other changes happen, right? For example, this and this and this and this. So some of them are at the end and some of them are in between. So I need to record the single character change in the already existing text, this one, because that's an instruction that has nothing to do with what later comes here. But this is changing the existing text in order to get from this earlier version to the next one that has all of the additional text. I need to preserve one change that happened here at the end of reliably, right? And all of the other changes in here, I mean, there's even some deletions and whatever, right? But to arrive at this new version, I can collapse all of these into a single addition, but I still need to retain the one change to the reliable and reliably, right? So that's like if I set the boundaries between the versions, I can collapse everything that's within the same, let's say, range of operations. And I also, if one of these changes happen, like if I start to write like the first section of the new text, then I change something in the old, and then I continue to write the second half of the new edition, even with some deletions in between. Like the deletions in here, all of these can be collapsed, but what I need to record in the end to get from the initial version to the second version is I need the first part of the addition, then the single change to the existing text, and then the rest of the addition, because the optimizer is not supposed to obstruct and like ignore the order and history of these changes, because they might be important in the process of writing what the writer was thinking and where he, at what particular point he decided to change the single letter here. And that can of course lead to pretty fragmented history of the text, even to the point that the optimizer cannot optimize anything. But if we have a longer range of deletions with additions that are within the same text range, changing text range between two versions, all of that can collapse, of course, and that's the optimization for now. There could be, of course, more options that also allow to order these change instructions according to the occurrence of the position or something like that. All of that is possible, but for now I think I should go first for the approach I just described. So I'm going to download this file here. Let's see. Okay. That's HTX, the optimizer, and in here it will be called the input XML file, right? I think I keep this one open, and now I should be able to call it again, and now it's just like the basic code of the change instructions executor, except that most of the code is commented out and doesn't do anything. And from there I can continue to implement it. Okay. Okay. I think the reading of the job file, that's pretty straightforward. Nothing special in here. And maybe I need to get some of my notes about the approach, how to do it. I wrote down some notes. Maybe I should just get them. Yeah, I think it was about like the loop of the change instructions executor. That one goes over all of the instructions and outputs individual files for each version created by an instruction. So with the optimizer, I need to do the operations in an internal string buffer, like the string builder, and only the sections of the for additions only additions and deletions within that range. I guess I'm sort of like creating a virtual buffer, like a relative section of the text portion, and translating operations instructions to that relative positions in the string builder. And if like so, that can expand the string builder, of course, by addition, and it can also remove characters from it. But as soon as I do a jump to another text position, then of course I have to write it to the output. And more so, what do I do about deletions in virtual space, because they collapse as well. I mean, they already did run through the optimizer potentially, but like, yeah, now the problem is, can I run the optimizer only on the result of the concatenator, or should the optimizer also be able to do the concatenation, right? That's like, so it's not only about, yeah, so probably I used the wrong template here. I copied the wrong tool. I shouldn't have gone with the executor, but with the concatenator, because that's doing more of it, or more of what I need already. But okay, that's probably not too bad, because like, except for the differences in boilerplate code, I likely can copy what's in here, because like all of that is basically more like what I need. Why do I have two editor windows open here? No, I distrust them. Reopen them. At least reopen one of them. Okay. So that goes in here. So that's basically the code that actually does something. Okay, so now the optimizer became an concatenator, and because there's already the output file, I can probably even compile it and run it, except for like the mention of concatenate. I need to replace that, of course. Right. There shouldn't be any mention of concatenator in here. Oh, no other mention. Okay, let's see if that compiles, but maybe it does. Oh, it really does. Okay, but like the question is from my input file, if that's already a concatenated one, it might be, or maybe, yeah, it already is. So it is, so it's already a concatenated one, because in here I have delete operations that span much more than the 20 characters of the autosave. And of course the autosave of the change tracking text editor, that's something that can be adjusted, of course, but I think the standard or default is either 16 or 20 characters for autosave. And the concatenator doesn't care about that too much and collapses instructions into single instructions until the operation type changes from addition to deletion or something like that, or the cursor jumps in the position to do it. So that's pretty much already quite helpful. But let's imagine these are the instructions to get from the first version, which is from like position 0 and blank file, to the final stage that includes all of these changes as well. That means that all of these instructions can be collapsed into a single addition, which writes out the perfect text. So the in contrast to the concatenator, this like the optimizer doesn't care about changes of type and jumping, as long as the instructions that are configured to be collapsed are in the same virtual text block, basically. So if like the virtual text block starts from nothing, then of course all of this can be collapsed into the final version of the text. But like if I start somewhere in here, like at this last instruction, and I say the next 5 instructions need to be optimized, then it would see if all of them are in the, like if all of these are additions or deletions that can be collapsed into a single instruction or multiple ones, and if they are in different places, they cannot be collapsed. That's basically the idea. So if I give this file as the input and say collapse all of that, and it starts out from scratch, of course all of it will be collapsed into one single addition. So that's basically the concept, I guess. And of course the optimizer needs to be extended into a way that allows to specify the range of instructions that need to be optimized within a stream of other instructions that need to be retained. If the user can somehow specify that, or the server is doing that, then that's probably, I mean, in the end, maybe some of this needs to go into actual editor application, but that's sort of like the vision what it probably could do in the end, right? And for the virtual text block I'm using here in order to record the optimized ideal operations. I think it already has a string builder to do that. I mean, the question is what to do if it goes like only deletions and removal instructions. What do I do with these? Just based on a counter or something, position and counter maybe. Because if the string builder is empty and there's no additions in it, I still can, from the position where it started, can still calculate how much is removed from it. That's probably decent approach or strategy how to do it. But it looks like I don't have a string builder here. Of course not, because I think for the optimizer, yeah, okay. So that needs to be a combination of the executor and the concatenator, I guess. Okay, let's see what. Oh no, wait, I'm looking at the wrong position. That's reading the job file. Yeah, of course, here's a string builder. Current account. Okay. Let's see where I can start with this. In here I have like an identifier for the namespace, but I think I'm not too happy with that. I probably have to change that later, but that's not part of the task right now. So like I write this one, and then I start with like, I guess, looping over the input. And the problem is that this already assumes that all of the text needs to be constructed from scratch, because if it is not, I cannot start with an operation at position 1 if there are no characters already. So I think there needs to be like a start instruction that tells it what, like the range between the, I think the job file needs to have a range at which instruction the collapse and optimization needs to start and where it needs to end, because otherwise I can never reach. I don't want to work with the plain text input file. That's the main point here, because in this system or this approach, maybe plain text files can be avoided entirely and everything is constructed from the change operations and change instructions. And if I have some file on my computer or on the server, I probably know what the last instruction was, and then I can or maybe I can look it up, and then I say all these new change instructions, they need to optimize from the last one to whatever new change instructions were submitted or created by the editor, and all of these get optimized for the new highest instruction number. So that's basically how that needs to work, I guess. I mean, let's just try it. Or something's wrong with my audio. Why does it was fine all the time and now it suddenly starts to, is that probably just with my earphones here? No, that's in the source, I guess. That's in the stream. Huh, seems to be gone. I hear it with some delay, of course. Okay, how do we do it? Like, maybe have a new section that's called input. I don't need to really check for it. Just to group it a little bit, so it's clear that this belongs to the input. That's for the human reader, right? And I also have like how, like, Was it, would I call it instructions? Like, okay, at first instruction start. Because there will also be an instruction end. But this one I will comment out because usually I list all of the options for the job file, all the different ways to use it, but I comment out those that aren't a useful default. So like maybe the idea is if I don't specify an instruction end position or a count, that means that everything needs to be optimized till the end, right? And how would I think maybe I already the executor maybe? Does the executor have something like this? I think I have a name for it in the executor already because like all of these need to count the I think it's instruction count probably, right? Let's see where it is. Instruction. Should I call it index? Instruction start. Maybe I should call it version, right? Index number, how would you call it? There is no good name for it, I guess. Reference would be bad too. I guess that's not a good name to use. But I really want a good name for it because that's like important. That will show up in many places, I guess, because that's what you use to reference. Reference these. Oh my. Start position. Like, I mean, eventually I even need to number the instructions in the format for other interesting reasons. Let's see. I don't have a number in there. I mean, there's like, oh wait. There is like ordinal number, right? But that's not in, but like some people know about this terminology. I could also call it revision, right? Revision equals revision 15 or something like that. Or operation, because I mean I already have instruction, but introducing new terms, it's like a little bit like if I that's one of the worst to find a good name. Let's see what I can do in English. Sequential number. I mean, I could change it later anyway, and I probably should, but that's really frustrating right now. What's a good name for it? Should I call it ordinal revision? Maybe I should just call it index, because that appeals to a programmer, I guess. Count isn't a proper name for it. What else? That's like now the biggest problem with the entire project, how to come up with a proper name. I mean, another option would be something like this. Maybe I even leave out the index part. Or maybe I like maybe that's probably the best I can come up with, because like, I mean, usually I want to have the general part in the general name at first, and then the more specific one. But in this case, it's more important to have like proper English and sort of have the user understand what it means and how to use it. That's sort of much more important here. And I don't like the optimize here, but I don't have an idea how to better name it. And another question is if I should allow only one of these instructions or several of them, because they can seriously mess up the entire concept of the optimizer. Because like I like the idea is to have the tool run only once through the entire input and not mess up the order of everything just because there are different optimization instructions here. So there really can only be one of these. And in order to express that properly in the job file, I'm even going to, I mean, usually I don't do something like this, like combining the input file instruction together with the attributes like here, but in this case it's really important to convey the concept, I guess. All right, so it is pretty apparent that like these numbers are in reference to the input file, and it's also pretty clear that I cannot have two attributes with the same name, so there's no other instruction ranges. And it's also clear that like it's not instruction start to describe where an instruction starts, but what's the start instruction number and end instruction. And I also want to show that the end instruction can be omitted. And in this case, I guess it's sort of maybe no, I should not even give the impression that multiple input files can be specified. I rather have a comment in here that says and instruction is optional. But the problem is the reasonable default for this file wouldn't be 5, and like this would be the reasonable default. Yeah, I think I'll leave it like this. Not too clear, but I guess that helps people to figure out what is meant, because I see that it is 0 based. That's also the reasonable default. It'll do the right thing out of the box, and I can also specify an end instruction. And it's not too clear should I write it this way as an example? Is that more helpful? I mean, not that people think that this is an actually useful number here, but that they can pass a number. Maybe I repeat that. That's usually how I write it if it is written out, but it can be omitted. Optional and instruction attribute. I guess I'll leave it like this. Yeah. Okay. And that should make it easy for me to read in those values, because if I have already found the input file, I don't need to look for other elements. Here I can just check for the order attributes. Oh wait, yeah, that's maybe the thing I want to do here. Yeah, because all of these are attributes from the more general to the more specific. And then it doesn't matter too much that I call it start instruction, because then it's more like a name. A name of the attribute, basically. And instruction. And now I have to, of course, change all the old forms of the name and not miss one. Okay, let's do it for the output file just as well, for the sake of coherence. Okay, that's all. And I also need to check. Maybe the start instruction should be optional as well, because if it's not set, it will be 0, right? And to express that in a job file, and now that it gets totally now I'm messing it up completely. Okay. Oh my. Should I go for the for the maximum of unsigned long in Java. That's probably too big to write it properly down. Oh my. It's like even way too difficult to do this very simple. Sometimes it's better to lie in documentation if that aids the better understanding of the user. Like the start instruction might very well be optional too, but that's not what the user actually needs to really know about. It is more of a help to indicate that the instructions are counted zero based, and that's even not a very good idea because these are not array indexes, right? They are referenceable by humans. So I just changed that to as one based. I guess I have to look it up for the executor, but that's only an internal number, right? So that doesn't matter too much if it's zero based or one based counting in here. Let's see. Yeah, okay, I also. Why is it not unsigned? Nobody knows. Doesn't unsigned exist? Could be. Could be. You never know. Yeah, unsigned long doesn't exist. Okay. Okay, so and optional attribute and instruction. I think that's pretty like, I guess that's sort of easy to understand, I guess. So I guess I do all of the checking on the input file, and then if the other attributes exist, but more importantly, what's needed is long Internally, it doesn't matter too much how they are called. If I call them number, that's for internal purposes only. And I think I need to use try parse in here. Oh, how is it called? I don't know. I think it's not try parse, is it? Oh. Parse long, okay. And does this throw an exception, or do I get a bool to check? Yeah, it throws a number from an exception. And that's one I need to handle, of course. Like this. And the radix probably has a default, hasn't it? That's an optional character, optional parameter, isn't it? Oh no, it's overloaded. Okay, it's overloaded. And the default radix is 10, of course. Okay, so parse long, that's attribute get value. And if I catch an exception here, I just do nothing with it, right? Maybe reset my number just to make sure. That's, how did I call it? Instruction number start. But maybe I should, if it exists and there's a problem with, maybe I should throw an exception and abort and exit. Number. And here I repeat the name. That's never a good thing to do, but out of sloppiness. But maybe I can, like, I can probably attribute get name or something like it. Oh my, what type is it? Stream events. I'll likely only get a queue name. Oh, that's just like an interface, but what can you do with it? How can it even do anything? Oh, okay, probably have the wrong one. Oh, that looks like more like it. So it's like, I mean, I did a stacks implementation in C++ as well, but I could like try to remember and do it like I have it in my implementation, but maybe there are some minor differences. And of course, as expected, it's like I get a queue name out of here. And then I guess get local part probably. Just, oh no, oh wait, get local part, okay. And the other thing I want to pass is the value. Okay, that's the exception I want to throw. And the same for the end attribute if it exists. Okay. So after this, I should have started and end instruction. Or I probably can output these. Wait. Yeah, that looks more like it. Number. Oh my, what's missing? Did I forget? Oh my. Okay. Where did the end bracket brace go? Okay. Okay. Oh wait, that's certainly not correct. But of course, start is 1 and end is 0. Can this be? Because end is not initialized with my, if it's omitted, it's not initialized. And what I need to do, of course, is to make sure I need to check the numbers, of course. That I get here. It's not allowed, negative numbers. Oh yeah. Start, end. Start, end. Start, end. Okay. And I also want to check that one isn't that like the start number isn't higher than the end number. In this case, that's exactly what it is, but because of the default 0 should be no end, and that's an exception to the rule, I guess. I excluded the negative already, but like, I mean, like the exception messages here, these are pretty generic, but I guess at this point I cannot use that any longer, and I need to get more specific at this stage. That's a terrible way to describe it, but it's just an ID. And I guess I'm passing the two numbers here. to be used in the error message translation. Okay. What's the symbol X? Why did I forget to specify it? Do have it, right? But that one doesn't have it. Yeah. Okay. Doesn't have an exception, of course. Okay. And I get an exception right there. Why is that? Yeah, of course. Okay, but it wants to. Why did it trigger? Oh, of course it is like I wrote it in the wrong. Of course I want it only to trigger if it is actually set, right? Not if it's not set. Okay. So I can later check if it is null 0 to find out if there's an end, if an end was specified. And these things here, I guess they are from the concatenator. So this means I can loop through all of that and have it do its magic until I reach the current count, I guess, right? But like what's going on in here, that's something I probably shouldn't mess with. Maybe I need to get rid of it entirely. Current count is probably incremented at, oh no, that's not the instruction count. That's something else. That's like for additions and stuff. Okay. That starts with 1. Okay. Is start element, it might be add or delete, I guess, right? Yeah, that's the only type of event that's checked here anyway. I think I'm going to remove these. Also not using any of that stuff. And it's the same. And I guess now I need some code that writes the entire start element to output as it is, and also the subsequent text node if there is one, because that's the difference between delete. I mean, delete can be written immediately to output with its attributes. The last one included, that depends in string operations. I have the start one, the start number, and that includes the one I want to. Yeah, I think they're always included, right? Does this work in Java? I'm not sure. Okay. That's of course code that works with the remaining parts that need to be written to the output if they haven't already. And I'm respecting that, of course, by commenting it out. So that should skip everything, right? It's going to skip everything, of course, as expected. Okay. Now we get to the real work, I guess. How do I do it here? How do I work with additions? I don't have a separate loop to get the text nodes. I think they are just, oh no, I thought they were collecting to the string builder or buffer in a handler for is characters, but that's apparently not the case. So how do strings get added? Oh, it's here, of course. It consumes everything until it reaches its own end here. Okay, that's sort of fine. So should I do it like this in case that the instruction range of my interest isn't reached? I guess that's something that can be done. Yeah, okay, let's do it like this for now. And of course this code needs to be adjusted. I can get rid of that one. Okay. I think I don't need any of this. Just I made a mistake here. These are not messages about the input file, but about the job file. Yeah. File can get canonical, blah 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 blah. And that's not input, that's job file as well. No statements about the input file at that early stage, right? Okay. Why is it integer? It could be long. Maybe there is a reason, but I forgot. Okay, there's no string builder or connector involved at this point. Just write it out, write it to output, then have the loop that collects the characters. I guess there was a trick with the I like the I don't need to copy it to a string. I can write it as XML encoded characters to the output. But I have to look it up. I think it was a method like write encoded string or something like that. A fairly long name, but I don't recall it. I'll just look it up really quick. Oh, too bad. Why does it need to be so difficult to find a proper example. I'm working with strings, that's fine. Write as encoded Unicode. That's the way to go. Write as encoded code. That solves my issue, I guess. And that continues until the end is reached. And at that point we should have like a perfect copy of all the additions that are not in the range, and the other ones will be omitted, and we basically more or less need the same for the deletion, except that there's no processing for the characters, because these are destructive operations. They don't retain a copy of what they destructed, which leads to quite some difficulty for me for like for all of my other attempts there. It would be much easier if these would exist, but I unfortunately cannot. Like, I don't want to blow like for no good reason have copies of the same text portions in the source file if there's no in the format, if there's no need for it in order to, yeah, I mean, that's like a whole different discussion of what to do about these problems. That's like causing me quite some trouble. Yeah. Okay, so if like the numbers are fine, basically I can output delete, and that has a position and a count, I guess. Yeah, that's it. Wait, just write the position to output and also write the count to the output. So that basically just creates a copy. Don't forget to close the tag again. Okay, so this acts basically as a way to currently to cut out portions of the instructions, right? So with from 1 to endless, I mean that's not. I probably need to check what happens if there is no end, right? There needs to be maybe I shouldn't set it to max long, because I want to continue it forever. No matter how much there are, there's no need for artificial restrictions how long this sort of code can run. I mean, we never exceed long max, the maximum number for long, I guess. But like instruction number end is larger than 0. Yeah, I think that's the way to write it. So with this simple change, we can support much more instructions there. It needs to be larger than 0. And it also needs to be smaller than the current instruction or equal. Right? Is that what it is? No, only smaller. So that means that the current instruction is same or equal. And that will lead to the instructions only being copied to output. Like yeah. So if the instruction is smaller or equal to the end, then we get into the else case. Yeah, I think that's correct. Who knows? Sometimes I get myself confused about the most simple things. Okay, let's see what output we got. If we got everything. Okay, that looks good. There is some output at least, right? And there's also some mismatch because I probably forgot like the closing. Yeah, of course, there's something missing. I didn't close the add here. Okay. But the delete, that's like a standalone auto closed one. Okay. Give it another try, give it another try. But it looked like there's only one instruction in there. Yeah, just the first one. That's too bad. And why is that? Because I messed up my sort of... Oh, wait. I guess we have... The range is basically... cutting out everything, but for some reason, I guess that one shouldn't be in there as either, right? And that's probably because of the equals here, because they are the same. Start is one and instruction is one. And if it is included, I only want to skip it. I think I wrote it because I assumed that it would still be 0 based. But if the start is actually reached with the current instruction and be the first one, it is one to process in the else case. Currently that leads to its omission. Yeah, and so I guess that makes more sense a little bit in terms of describing the range, formulating the ranges. Okay. Yeah, so that's empty. That gives us some control about the the range of instructions that we want to optimize. So we can use that to cut some things out, which isn't a smart thing to do, but it's possible. So 2, 3, and 4, that should lead to 3. Like, is that 3 instructions being cut out? No, it's the other way around, isn't it? Oh, it's probably, I probably have to negate the whole thing. Yeah. That's... Come on. The input, I want to have a look at the input. I think it's 12 count minus 3. Yeah, so the first is still there. This is second, third, and fourth, and then we continue with 12, right? Yeah, so and basically if we start with the first one and don't have an end, everything gets cut out for optimization basically. And now we have cut out only these like 3 instructions for optimization, and the rest is still in here. Okay. So at least that helps with the selection of the ranges for optimization. And for all of the instructions that are inside the range, I guess these need to work on the virtual buffer, virtual string range, I guess, relative to the absolute. Yeah, that's something for the next session, because it's way too late. It's way too difficult to wrap my head around at this late hour and to figure out what I actually want. I should also get my notes, which I prepared in order to, like, before thinking about this. But that we have the ranges now helps a lot, because they like without the range it would always optimize like the entire file to a single operation, and with the range there's the notion between, because if there's no range, it always means that it needs to start from the first character and ends with the last instruction, and that will of course lead to a single addition every time. And with the range there can be the notion that, for example, I can, if some new instructions get added to an already existing stream of instructions, I can remember what the last instruction number or index or whatever was, and then optimize all the new instructions into what they mean based on the instructions that were already there before as earlier versions. And so I can, like, then I get like the history between these versions in an optimized form, rather than preserving all of them all the time, and also like optimizing away every version into a single addition from the first character to the last instruction. So that's basically, I guess, the main concept behind the optimizer, to allow that. And some preparations have been made now for this program and tool. Yeah, okay, and I guess that's for this session and for today. Okay, goodbye. Until next time.